Welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to the Palestine Museum US. Please turn your cell phones off and refrain from using them during the presentation. We're honored today to have with us Sandra Rasheed. And Sandra is the Palestine Country Director for Anera. And she will share with us some information and insight as to what is happening on the ground and what activities Anera has been involved in to support the Palestinians in Gaza. Please welcome Sandra Rasheed.
So it's really good to see everybody. I'm going to use the mic for the recording, but I can start off by, I'll introduce myself and talk a little bit about Anera, but I really want this to be very interactive. I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to have a conversation about what's happening because I'm sure you all are watching the news and you have your own questions. And so I'd really like to open it up for that and have a period of time where we can have this conversation together. I think all of us are pretty much glued to our TV or to the news most of the time, trying to see what's happening, and every day we're shocked about what happened. So let me stop and introduce myself. My name is Sandra Rasheed. I'm Palestinian American. I was born and raised in the US, born in New Jersey. My formative years were in Washington State. And then after college and working a little bit, I went back to Palestine for the first time. And if anybody's ever been to Palestine, you know that once bitten, that's it. Palestine becomes in your blood, and you become really, you follow the news, you follow the people, because it's an experience like nothing you've probably ever felt before. People are so welcoming, it's beautiful, the culture, the history. And so I was very much like that. I was very Americanized when I went to Palestine, and then when I went to Palestine, I realized that this is where my passion lies. So I worked in Palestine for NGOs, such as the Faisal Sani Center in Jerusalem. I was a teacher for a short period of time. I worked for local organizations focusing on community development, agriculture, youth. I also worked for the Carter Center for a brief period of time. When I was in the US, I worked with the Carter Center for about 2 years. But the work that I did also had Palestine as its portfolio. So everything that I've ever done since pretty much going to Palestine that first time has revolved around Palestine and seeing how I can contribute to making Palestine a better place. When I was in Palestine in 2017, I was with Save the Children, worked with that organization for about 5 years. And then I felt I needed a change, and Anera asked me to be their consultant for their strategic plan, and then after 3 months they asked me to stay on board as their country director. And how many of you know Anera?
Can you say what it stands for?
Yeah, Anera is the American Near East Refugee Aid. It was started 56 years ago, and I'm just getting off my fangirl stage, so I've always been like a fangirl of Anera. They're doing such amazing work. And when I had the chance to work with them one-on-one as a strategic consultant, I realized what powerful impact they had on the ground. And so when they asked me to join them, without hesitation, I joined them as their country director. Was doing that for 2 years until October 7th happened, and now we have pre-COVID and post-COVID, and we have pre-October 7th and post-October 7th. And since October 7th, you know, we have been living, breathing, eating, sleeping, dreaming Gaza. Everything revolves around Gaza. Our office, we have 3 offices. We have an office in Ramallah, an office in East Jerusalem, and we have an office in Gaza City. And after October 7th, our office in Gaza City closed down because they were in now what's considered the north of Gaza, and we could no longer operate there. And all of our staff not all, 8 out of our 12 staff were displaced themselves and went to the south, and we have now offices of sorts in Rafah, Khan Yunis, and Deir al-Balah. We also have operations in the north. We have been working very heavily with about 55 different organizations who partner with us or through us to do the work. And the reason why they work with us is, one of the reasons why I was so enamored by Anera is because Anera is run in Palestine by the Palestinians from the community. Every single person that works in our Palestine office is Palestinian. We have a few that have dual citizenship, such as myself. We have 2 or 3 people who have American passports. We have one who has a UK passport, but everybody is Palestinian. Everybody's deeply rooted in the communities. And so when we started doing our interventions, we were very much aware of the needs, and we were very much invested in the communities because of the very fact that we are from the communities that we serve. When this first started, we have an emergency team leader. His name is Sami Matab, and October 7th blew everybody away. It was a shock to everybody's system. So when he called me and he said, things are already starting to get bad on October 8th, I said, Sami, sit tight, let's see what's gonna happen, and then we'll see what our response is. And he said, no, people are already being displaced, people already need our help, and even if I die saving the people and helping our people in Gaza, that's how I'm gonna die. So I call him our kamikaze warrior. Sami is very much, this is the mentality he's had from the very beginning. And he was working solely by himself for almost 2 weeks because of the rest of the staff was sitting tight. It was a very scary time when everything was happening. And then when October 13th happened and everybody had to move down south, that's when the rest of our staff started supporting Sami in our interventions. So what we've been doing from the very beginning is life-saving interventions. And in Palestine, we've never had to do life-saving interventions because it was never a matter of life or death. We'd had wars, we'd had attacks, there's always spikes of violence. But the issue with Palestine and Israel is it's a protracted conflict. It's compounded. And so this is the first time that it's actually a need to do life-saving interventions. So what we've been doing is providing food. We've been providing medicine, we've been providing shelter. We now have 3 clinics that are running. One is a wound management center that, if you watch the news, you see that a lot of the people don't have shoes on their feet. They're walking around on this rubble, on this gas, and they're getting cuts. And basically, I don't want to say that only the health sector has collapsed. Every single sector in Gaza has collapsed. The health sector has collapsed, education sector, transportation, communication, security, economic, financial, everything has completely collapsed. And people wonder, how are people functioning in a situation like this? And we get the question all the time, how are you able to do anything in this situation? It's not easy, it's challenging, but we are able to do this. And even though we also have had spikes of how much we've been able to do at any given time, right now, for example, I will tell you, this is the hardest and most challenging time since October 7th. Since May 7th, if you know, Rafah border was closed. So no trucks are coming in from the Egyptian side of the border. And before it was closed, there was about 1,400 trucks waiting to come in. And then it was closed, and those trucks have slowly become rerouted to Kerem Shalom or Kerem Abu Salim so that they can come through to the south. They open up borders on the north, and since October 7th to today, there's an average of 93 trucks that enter Gaza. And I want to emphasize that it's an average. Some days, it might reach 200 trucks. And then we'll have 2 or 3 days when no trucks come in. There was a period where we had 2 weeks of not a single truck coming in to Gaza. But now we're back up. Trucks are coming in. We just had, I think, 12 trucks come into Gaza just in the last 2 days. And so it ebbs and flows. But 93 trucks per day as an average for 1.9 million Palestinians that are displaced, that have no means, that the local market has been completely depleted is nothing. Prior to October 7th, there was about 500 to 600 trucks entering every day. That included commercial trucks, that included aid, UN organization supplies that they bring in for the refugees. And now we are at about 20% of that. So this gives you a little bit of idea of what the situation is.
Sandra, can I interrupt you with a question?
Yes.
Now, when one of your trucks enters Gaza, how do they know where to go and what roads are passable, what roads are safe, and what areas you're not going to get bombed if you drive on?
So there's a few points I want to talk about that you mentioned. One is how do we, what borders are open? Right now, Rafah is closed, so the southern border is closed. Kerem Shalom or Kerem Abu Salem is open, and that's the only means that we have that can bring goods to the south. Ashdod as a port is open, and when things come into Ashdod, they come from Ashdod and then they go to Kerem Shalom, or they can go to Zakim. Zakim is another border in the north that's open. So we have Zakim, East Aris, West Aris, Kerem Shalom right now operating in terms of ports open. So once those trucks come in, and this is also another thing that not many people realize, is that trucks coming into Gaza can carry about 22 pallets. Each pallet is roughly about a ton of goods, if it's food or supplies. Once they enter Gaza, the trucks in Gaza are much smaller. So there's only about 10 to 12 pallets that can fit. It's almost half the size of the trucks coming in. So that's also a challenge, because when trucks come in, we have to find the trucks that are able to take those food and supplies and bring them to whatever port whatever area that we want to do.
So your trucks don't go all the way, they transfer the supplies to local trucks?
Yes, and it's not our trucks. So we have trucks, for example, coming in from, let's say, Jordan. Trucks from Jordan will come up all the way to LNB Bridge. If you're familiar with the geography, they'll come up to LNB Bridge. They'll have back-to-back where the goods are transported from the trucks from LNB Bridge that are Jordanian trucks to Israeli trucks. The Israeli trucks will go to whatever port, Zakim, Kerem Shalom, and they are transferred from Israeli trucks to Palestinian trucks. But what they usually do is it's not a simple process where a truck pulls up and the other truck is offloading. What they do is they unload the trucks, the Israeli truck, they unload them into the ports, and then the Palestinian side has to find their pallets or find their trucks, their goods, and put it on a truck to go out. The question about the route and the safety, I think we all understand that no place in Gaza is safe. It doesn't matter. We've seen why. We've had our own colleague killed. We've seen our partners when the WCK killings happened. I don't know if some of you realized or saw that just 2 days ago, another WCK employee was killed. He's Palestinian, but he was also killed en route to one of the kitchens. So even when we inform the Israeli authorities, we do a deconfliction, which means that we inform the authorities either of the coordinates of where our interventions are taking place, or we coordinate the route, which we tell the Israelis where we're going. That doesn't guarantee their safety, but that's about as safe as we can go. I want to stop now because I realize that I've just been talking. I can talk for, in many different areas, but I would like to open it up and see if there's any questions or any, yes, Roma.
You started talking about the clinics and
so just as one of the interventions that we're doing, which is really important, the health sector has collapsed. We now have 3 clinics. One of them is a wound management clinic for the wounds that I mentioned, but it's also become almost like an urgent care, because this is the only kind of medical services or medical help that people can get. So when we first started, we were getting about 150, 200 people per day, and now that is upward to about 1,000 people a day coming to the clinics. We have a non-communicable diseases clinic, which focuses on hypertension, diabetes, things of this nature, and we have a mother and child clinic, which look at providing support to mothers and young children or women who are pregnant. So those are the 3 clinics that we're doing. We're hoping to scale that up more. We're hoping to get more clinics set up. We're getting ready to set one up in the north. And we'll be doing that in the next couple weeks, where we'll also have a clinic up in the north. And now the geography of the north is different, because the north was always known as Beit Hanun and Beit Lahi. We have somebody from the north with us today. But now that area is closed off, and when people talk about the north, they're talking about the middle area as well, because Gaza was the middle area, but now it's also been considered in the north because it's been closed off from the rest of Gaza down in the south of Deir al-Balah, Khan Yunis, and Rafah.
Now, your clinics, are they like field units, or you find buildings that you can use and place them in?
They're tents. They're tents. We have them in tents. We have like these multi-purpose tents. Probably the size of the half of this room is the size of our tents. And we have a doctor, a general practitioner, a pediatrician, a gynecologist. We've been able to get a dentist to join us at times. We bring in a nutritionist and a nurse and a pharmacist, and they help run our clinic to help the people that are coming in. It's not just, having simple wounds or being affected by any bombings or shellings in certain things. People are also malnutrition, so there's lots of ailments and illnesses that come from the fact of being malnutrition. A lot of the food, about 90% of the food is canned, processed, so that the number of cases of hypertension has spiked. Their diabetes has increased, again, because of a lot of the stress that people are living with. And now we see that there's a lot, skin diseases, rashes are rampant. We all are watching very carefully to see what will happen with polio. We're working with WHO and UNICEF to get vaccines in. They're the ones that are leading this, but they've asked us to help them in supporting in terms of distribution and getting the vaccines to certain areas. So we will be supporting WHO and UNICEF when that goes in as well. Any questions? I want to see if there's questions.
I have a question. I saw something on the Anera website that a couple of the Anera workers in Gaza were arrested and put in prison. They were interrogated for 6 hours. I don't know. I always thought that was kind of concerning that they actually arrested workers.
Yeah, so one of our employees was arrested. It was 3 of our employees were going from the south to the north to accompany a convoy that was going to go and bring from some commodities from the south, fruits and vegetables, up into the north. And at the checkpoint, they were detained for several hours, and it was around 6 hours. And then one of our staff members was arrested, and he's still detained. He still has not been released. He has not been charged with anything other than he's got some allegations. We don't know what the allegations are yet, but he's arrested. There is no rhyme or reason to why some people get arrested. A lot of the men are being arrested. We see a lot of mistreatment of the prisoners. We see a lot of prisoners suffering sexually, physically, emotionally from what is happening in the prison. So you're right, it's extremely alarming. We're very concerned about our staff member. We've hired a lawyer to see how they can support us and how we can see about getting him out.
I think it was about a week ago, there was reports about Israelis blowing up one of the major water distribution plants in Gaza. What's the situation with water right now in Gaza?
So the situation of water is a little bit difficult and challenging. Clean water, potable water is not readily available. It was said in the World Bank report of 2020 that by 2020, there would be no drinking water or potable water in Gaza. We actually saw that much earlier than 2020. By 2019, 97% of the water in Gaza was undrinkable. But how we were dealing with that was based on many of our supporters, like yourselves, who gave us funds and project money to do reverse osmosis, which helped us make the water more potable, and we were able to do that. And so there is water through reverse osmosis that is working in some areas. some areas have had, I don't want to say malfunction, or they need to be maintained, so they're not functioning right now. And there was the incident of the bombing of the water center. Right now, as Anera, we have a project where we're working with the ETA, which is the water, for the institution that's responsible for the water. We're delivering about 30,000 cubic waters per day, and we were able to do that for some time. But is that enough? No. Like I said, the number of trucks have decreased, so the number of water coming into Gaza has decreased, which is part of the reason why skin disease is rampant, why hepatitis is becoming a concern, why polio is a concern, etc. So the water issue is a very serious issue.
I have a question about the GoFundMe accounts that are floating around and people are donating to. Are people being able to find a way to get access to their funds? Are there some kind of functioning banks? It just logistically, it seems like, how would they be getting access to these funds? And is that something viable?
So when this first started and Rafah was open, there's a company called Yahala in Egypt, where they were facilitating the evacuation or people leaving Gaza. They weren't doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. It started with a cost of $4,000 per person and $2,000 for children. That has now become, or it was right before May 7th, $10,000 for adults and $8,000 for children. So a lot of people were trying to set up GoFundMe accounts so that they can raise that money, so they can buy that service, so that they can try to go out. The people that had GoFundMe pages reached their goals, did leave. There's I think the number is close to 60,000 Palestinians who have left Gaza through Egypt. And there's, if you look up Olive Operation Branch, yeah, they have a list of all the GoFundMe pages that are there. And how viable is it? Right now, it's not viable. There isn't a way for them to leave. Prior to that, there was a possibility for people to go. I've seen GoFundMe pages where people are trying to get some money for after they have left. Because in the situation, for example, in Egypt, when they go to Egypt, they go and register with the Palestinian Embassy in Cairo, and they are allowed, or they're given about $150 a week. If they have a family, that could go anywhere from 200 to 300 family, depending on the number of family members. But that, it's difficult. It's difficult, and so a lot of them are legitimate, but there are some that are not. So if you are going to be supporting a GoFundMe page, I would just look to see what the story is, do some of your own investigation to see who these people are. We as Anera don't support that, but our heart breaks for those people that are trying to get out from that way.
I want to touch on the trucks at the ports. I know you said Egypt is now completely closed, but in Jordan, maybe you mentioned it, but when the trucks go through, is it like the Israelis that at the end of the day decide, like, all right, there's 10 that can come through today, or like, is it their final say? Is it more logistical? Just because, we're seeing, on the news, like, all right, there's no restrictions, and we know there is restrictions. We can't obviously bring in as many trucks as possible. So what's kind of like, where's the challenge? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So when trucks are going to go in, they get recorded on a manifest, and a manifest has to show what is coming in. Israel has said that they will allow food, shelter, and medicine without question. Anything else, if it's related to equipment, medical equipment, we've had nail clippers and syringes be considered dual use and not be allowed to come in. So once they approve the manifest, then the trucks are put on their way to come through the borders. And they have said that Israel is ready to let 200 trucks come in. But they say that the problem does not lie with them. It lies with those trying to bring the trucks in because they fail to properly brand or properly package or do something, so that gets held up. The other side will tell you, no, that's not the case. We brand and we do, but when you take the goods off of the trucks and throw them out onto the ground, they're no longer packaged the way that it needs to be. So there's a bit of a chaos in the process. And when they come into Kerem Shalom, it's not just a matter of putting back to back, they have to inspect them. So the soldiers, whoever's on the borders will go onto the trucks, inspect the trucks, make sure it is as the manifest says, they'll see what it is, and then they'll allow the trucks to offload. So there's a lot of issues. It's not just one side. It's not a functioning system. It's not a functioning system. When you're trying to get this many trucks in, and going through this process of back to back to back and having the goods or the commodities on the pallets be shaken up or not up to standards anymore, once it comes to the final place, then it is difficult to have it go through. So that's part of it.
Going from 500 a day to
93.
20, yeah, that means there's a lot of restrictions and there's just very slow process compared to prior.
And they don't care.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that if we look at the history of the number of trucks that have come in, and a lot of the trucks that used to come in were commercial. They, sometimes they would close it off. There was a period in 2014, if you remember in the Gaza history, that they were actually counting the number of calories that were being allowed to come into Gaza. So this is also part of it, trying to just let enough in to keep the population alive. And this is why if you look at the truck manifest, and you can find this information if you look up OCHA log truck cluster or truck cluster for the log for OCHA, it'll give you the number of trucks that go in daily. You can also look to see what the trucks are bringing in. So when they say that we're allowing 200 trucks in, and it's actually 93 trucks, those 93 trucks, about 70%, 80% are food. And the rest are, hygiene kits, tents, clothes, things like that.
So I know that a big portion of your work is on the West Bank and in East Jerusalem, and the underreported story is what's happening in the West Bank. And in fact, Jenin and several other places, it's virtually the Gazification of the West Bank. Could you say a little bit about the scope of your work there and how it's changing under the current circumstances?
So when October 7th happened, we had 8 staff members in Ramallah. We had about 8 staff members in East Jerusalem, and the 12, they were 13, but 12 members in Gaza. When October happened, we restructured our entire operations to respond to Gaza, because we thought, much like everybody else was thinking, this might last 2 weeks, this might last a month. So let's respond to what's happening, and then we can go back to business as usual. We did not carry on with our activities in the West Bank, which consisted of rooftop gardens, education, early childhood education programming, building schools, building playgrounds, health programming, providing medical equipment and medicines to hospitals and NGOs in Gaza, agricultural programs supporting small-scale farming. We have a Woman Can project, which looked at small economic empowerment activities or opportunities for women. All that was put on hold until about April. When April happened, I think we all kind of took a step back and thought, this is not going to end anytime soon. So we really have to try to figure out what we want to do for the West Bank, because you're right, what we're seeing now is very frightening. I live in Ramallah, and Ramallah is a little bit closed off than other areas, but you see what's happening. It's, the tension is very high. There's about 600, it was 672 days ago. We had 2 days ago, before the 12 were killed, so now it might be closer up to 700 Palestinians who have been killed since October 7th. We have tens of Palestinians arrested, actually the highest that it's been in decades, the number of Palestinians arrested
in the West Bank.
in the West Bank. And a lot of children arrested. The children as young as 12 are arrested. And they have this type of arrest called administrative detention. And when people are arrested based on administrative detention, they can arrest you without charging you. And they won't even tell your lawyer what the charges are because it's a security threat to Israel. So you can be held for 3 months, up to 3 months on administrative detention, not knowing why you're in prison.
Extended.
And then it's extended. It could be extended indefinitely. We have administrative prisoners who have been in prison for 20 years on administrative detention without even knowing why they're in detention. The movement from village to village and to get goods from place to place is extremely difficult, not only because of the flying checkpoints and the crossings, but because of the settlers. The settler violence is nothing like we've seen ever. The amount of settlers on the roads with their guns and stopping vehicles, setting fire to fields, setting fire to cars, going into villages and vandalizing and terrorizing the people there is not like anything that we've seen. It's also under the escort of the army. So when they go in, it's not just the settlers, it's also armed soldiers. They're not the ones partaking in the vandalism or the destruction, but they are there, standing there protecting the settlers doing it. So the situation is very difficult for the West Bank. It's August, we're gonna be going into all the picking season soon. And we don't know what that's gonna look like. We don't know how we're gonna be able to harvest the olives, which is the biggest part of the harvest that we do in Palestine is the olive season. And so people are worried. I think we're all worried seeing what's happening regionally, what's happening with Iran, what's happening with Yemen, what's happening in the region. It could erupt. And this could also, lead to other triggers. The world is bubbling and boiling right now, and this has all started because of what's been going on and what has been allowed to go on and what keeps going on in Gaza. So
I was speaking with somebody in Jerusalem today on the phone, one of the artists I deal with, and she said her husband had to drive across from there all the way to Haifa or something. He said it took him 1/3 of the time to get there. He said there aren't any people in the streets. Everybody is hiding in shelters in their houses. All the Israelis are off the streets. No, you can't find any Israelis in sight. The whole country is hiding.
they're waiting for Iran to retaliate.
Yes.
So it's
They said they've never seen anything like that. This is like from today.
I'm supposed to be going back on Sunday to go back to Ramallah. And every morning I check the news to see if flights are still going to Amman. Yesterday I saw that there were 4 airlines, United, Lufthansa, Qatar, and Avelo, which I've never heard of. Avelo, yeah.
It's a new airline.
They had listed them and I thought that was very,
They fly out of New Haven.
so, I don't know if,
That's what it is.
maybe it's not.
They go to Florida usually. I don't think they go to Amman.
I could be starting to remember. But there was 4 flights that have canceled their flights to Amman. So, every day, every hour, something's happening. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to make it back home on Sunday. And, but the situation is,
Do you go through Jordan or?
I go through Jordan.
Okay.
I go through Jordan, and then from Jordan, the LNB bridge. As holding an American passport, I can go through Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
But for me, the amount of humiliation and lack of dignity is not worth it to me. I would rather spend more money and go take longer time than be harassed at the airport. And I've been strip searched twice at the airport. I'd rather do it from home.
Any more questions from anybody? Any comments or?
Yeah, so the health sector, as we all know, is totally destroyed. And my understanding from the UN data is that there are 63 partners within the WHO health cluster that are providing 188 temporary facilities such as you have. And I believe the number of patients they're seeing is about 266,000 per month. The estimates of the damage to the health system, I think, is understated. It probably is exceeding close to $1 billion at this point. And if you're considering the other infrastructure that's required to support these facilities, it then could be much greater. International aid will be necessary to really